Welcome to the Bear Rumble Podcast, your home for everything BHP football. Each week, we dive into the greatest games, preview what's coming next, and share the stories that make Belton Honeypath Bears football special. From legendary coaches to unforgettable moments, this is where Bear Nation comes together. This is the Bear Rumble Podcast.
Welcome back, Bear fans, to another episode of the Bear Rumble Podcast. I'm your host, Kayne Evans, and we have a great episode for you this week. We'll be talking about running back tradition and program identity with Coach John Ballinger, running backs coach and associate head coach for the Bears. Along with that, we'll review last week's matchup against Westside, and then we'll preview this week's matchup against the Palmetto Mustangs. So now, let's jump on in with Coach Ballinger. All right, Bear fans, this week I'm joined by John Ballinger, running backs coach at BHP and associate head coach. We'll jump in with John, but thank you for being here, Coach Ballinger, and we're glad you're here. Excited to hear about some running backs, the storied history at BHP with running backs, and I know you've had your hand on that. And we'll get into that a little bit longer, but thanks for being here with us tonight.
Oh, Kayne, thanks for having me. I'm just excited to do this. I'm excited about this podcast. I really appreciate all the work that you put into it, getting our kids noticed more.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's jump into it. We'll talk a little. I always like to start with background because it's always great to understand what got you here and then what you're bringing to coaching for BHP. So let's start. Graduate of JL Mann. That was before. I believe that was before JL Mann got a little better in football. Let me say that. Just poking fun there.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. You know, my senior year, we made it to the third round of the playoffs and then got stomped by a really good Greer team. But prior to that third round run, we were a 500 team at best.
Yeah. Well, and then went on to Lander. Then you started coaching career. You coached at Southside out in Greenville County. And then you're here with the Bears. Walk us through that journey, both coming from playing in Greenville County and then going back coaching for Greenville County School. And then what was it like getting here back in Bear territory?
Well, you know, I knew I wanted to get back to Greenville. That's where my family is. That's where I grew up. So when I had the opportunity to get back to Greenville County, I took it. I signed a contract with Greenville County Schools, and I really didn't know where I was going to end up. I just knew I would be somewhere in Greenville County. And I ended up at Southside. I was there for 9 years, and it's not the easiest place to coach or teach. You know, we didn't get a lot of support from the school. We didn't get any support from the community. But I had a great group of kids that I worked with, and I enjoyed working with the kids there. But, you know, 9 years was enough to be there. I had some friends that I met in college at Lander that were BHP graduates. You know, we played rugby together. We became really good friends. And, you know, one of my BHP buddies, he reached out to me and told me that there was a teaching and coaching opening at BHP. I applied, interviewed with Coach Blackston, and now I'm on year 10.
There you go.
And let me tell you, you have no idea the differences. It's like night and day. You know, I joke around and I tell people all the time that first home game at BHP that I coached in, I walked out and looked into the stands, and there were more fans in the stands for that game than I might have seen in an entire season of home games at Southside. Like, it's just incredible the support that we get here.
Yeah, we'll get into what it's like coaching for BHP, but that at the very least, you're able to relate to some of these kids what that support looks like and what it doesn't look like at some places, which is, I think, is a great kind of caveat from some of the other coaches coming from maybe being back from programs that have this kind of tradition and always being at BHP and that sort of thing.
It's not just players, it's coaches too, you know? Yeah. Like, I tell people all the time when they say they want to get into coaching, I let them know, if you really want to coach, you should start somewhere like Southside. Spend a year coaching in a place like that, and if you still want to do it after that, then this job is for you.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's not all glamour. It really weeds out. That's a good one of those barometers of weeding out if you like sports or if you really truly this is your calling, that sort of thing. So with that, talk to me a little bit about some of those mentors you've had on the way, either at Mann or even, like you said, some of the connections you had at Lander, coaching at Southside, now at BHP. Talk to me a little bit about some of those coaches or players that really had an effect on you.
The guy that had the biggest impact on me coaching is a guy named Julius Prince. I worked with him at Southside. Um, and, as a young coach, I'm not going to lie to you, I was probably like a lot of young coaches. I was a hothead. I'd snap, I'd yell, I'd cuss. I was incredibly black and white, right and wrong. And there's no in between. Prince just did a great job of, showing me how to live in the gray area. We have, when I was at Southside, we had a lot of kids that came from really bad situations. And, football, sometimes it wasn't even about the wins and losses. It was more about just being somewhere where they felt safe and they could be with their friends and they didn't have to worry about what was going on at home. And that's really why I stayed for so long. I definitely wasn't staying at Southside to win a state championship. That wasn't going to happen. But it was just building those relationships with those kids. And that's one thing that, Prince taught me is like, you got to build relationships with the kids first. You could be the best X's and O's coach out there. But if you don't build a relationship with them, they're not going to play for you.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I will say, I've said it a lot on this podcast, but I think you maybe at the top of the list when I see those players, especially those running backs, come and talk to you guys on Friday night. It is special, the connection that I can see from the outside. I'm not there every day. I'm not seeing all the texts that you're doing, the calls and all that sort of thing, but I can see just 1,000-yard view it is for you connecting with these kids and how it means more than 100-yard night for a running back or something like that.
Absolutely. It's just one of those things where, as a coach, if you're in coaching, especially high school, if you're in it for wins and losses or glory or notoriety, then you're in the wrong profession. Because ultimately, and I know today with kids transferring and people, recruiting kids, it's kind of getting skewed to, it's still about taking these young kids and making them into better men.
Yeah.
High school's 4 years, but they still have the rest of their life in front of them.
Absolutely. And you can absolutely tell the difference in those coaches that are there to move up the chain, or especially even assistant coaches where you're there, where you can tell that it means more than just I'm looking at for my next opportunity. And I think that's something that Coach Blackson does great, bringing in guys who feel that way, feel they want to make that connection, but also each and every one of you coaches cultivating that culture at BHP. And it's just special, and it reiterates the community as a whole. I think
Absolutely.
You can see that as well as a community trying to take interest in these kids and not just a number on Friday night and that sort of thing too.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk about a little bit about those running backs. I know position group, the running back position, I know we may be skewed from the last one, but overall, even in the last decade, the running back group has produced some of the top talent of any position group for BHP over the last couple decades. Talk to me a little bit about what it's like coaching that position, especially when you have that top end talent. And what's one of those things that you think keeps producing that talent at BHP?
It's fun. I'm not going to lie to you. It's fun. I think one reason why we're able to have success is because those kids who get the opportunity to play running back at BHP, they know we're going to run the ball. And they know they're going to have an opportunity to showcase their talents and help this team win games. And I think that kind of motivates them to work harder in the weight room, to work harder at practice. Look, playing running back at BHP is not easy. We're not just, I know some people might be skewed because they think we could just hand the ball to Quez and Quez can go out there and make everybody miss and make highlight reel plays, which he does do that. But, the running backs have to know every single run blocking scheme because they need to know where the play is going to hit. They have to know every single pass protection scheme because they're part of the pass pro. They have to be able to run routes, catch the ball. And then on top of that, we're going to line them up in the backfield. We're going to put you at wing. We're going to put you in the slot. We're going to put you out wide. It's a lot. And honestly, I've just been blessed with guys that have, taken on that challenge. They work hard to learn all the plays, to learn the playbook. And, they really work hard in practice to go out and be successful on Friday nights.
Yeah. And even talking about characteristics of those running backs, I think yes, you had the playmaker kind of Quez, but it seemed like each and every one of them, even before Quez, was willing to go in it as that kind of lunch pail mentality. I'm willing to take the ball every time you hand it off to me. I'm willing to take care of the ball. I think that's one of the things that people don't realize, the amount of times we run the ball and the amount of fumbles that we've had in the last 5-6 years or something. It's a crazy spread. Do you
Hold
see
on now,
that
Ken.
come
Whoa, whoa,
with
whoa.
the BHP running
Don't
backs with that mentality that give me the ball, I want to run it every time if you let me?
Yeah, absolutely. Now I was about to say, don't jinx us with the fumble stat, because last year I remember the write up, and then we talked about the stat, and then Quez had 2 fumbles in the first half against MVP. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, absolutely. Those guys I've been really blessed with guys that, they come to work, they want the ball, and as a coach, that's what you want. You want guys that are competitors, guys that when the game's on the line, they say, "Give me the ball, I'm going to make a play." And I've been blessed to have running backs with that mentality. But also, another reason why we're successful is because we have 10 other guys on the field that are willing to block their tails off for. Coach O'Brien, Coach Blackston, Coach McLean, they do a great job of preaching blocking with their
Mhm.
kids. And those kids buy in. And that's really the main reason why we're successful. Like, those
Mhm.
other guys know, hey, my block's important. And
Mhm.
if I make this block, we have a chance to score. And that mentality really, I think, has led to a lot of our success.
Yep. You can see it every Friday night. It it's always that one extra block, that one extra. It could be a Dixon getting out in a pulling guard, or Brody Riddle with a crack block coming when he goes into motion, or a wide receiver downfield, and then you guys take advantage of it. It's not like they do all that effort and we make a wrong cut or something. It's the whole team working together. With that, let's talk about that group you have this year. We mentioned his name, Marquez Henderson. He's graduated, all-time leader, all-time everything. We've talked endless about that, but now you have a stable of backs back there. Give me a little overview of those guys that you guys run out there every Friday night.
Yeah, I will say this, even with Quez, we saw the stable of backs. We were
Yeah.
blessed with Shaheem Robbs, Justin
Yep.
Lathan. They were really good to us. But this
Absolutely.
year, look, 5 deep is crazy. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know how many high schools in the country can honestly say they have 5 running backs that they would trust any one of them to carry the load if necessary to win a game. I don't think that exists anywhere else outside of BHP. So I'm blessed with that. But the number one back, the guy who's going to carry the load, is MJ Earl. He's a senior. He played behind Quez last year. He can do it all. He can run, he can block, he could catch. And the word that describes him the best is consistent. He's a guy that you hand him the ball, you're confident he's going to figure out a way to get 4 yards. We don't
Mhm.
block it right, that's fine. He's going to find a way to get 4 yards. And I think everyone got to see that this past Friday at Westside. Every
Mhm.
time he carried the ball, 4 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards. Then he rips off one for 10, 12, 15. He's just super consistent. Behind him, we have another senior, Malachi Hester. Malachi is probably one of the most unselfish players I've ever coached. He takes pride in his blocking ability. I tell kids all the time, if you want to show that you care about your teammates, you go out and block for them. And against Westside, Friday night, he had 2 big blocks on receiver jet sweeps for us that swung touchdowns. He also does a great job running the ball on the edge for us on our buck sweeps and outside zones. And then behind them, we have 3 juniors. One is BJ Anderson. BJ Anderson's a super talented kid. He has really great ball skills. He can catch the ball well. He runs inside zone and outside zone very well. And then the last 2 juniors are Cam Robinson and Tyzier Ware. And they're more like your power backs. Those guys run between the tackles really hard. They have great leg drive. I love getting them the ball on power and counter. My toughest
Mhm.
job as a coach is figuring out how to get all of them in the game.
Mhm.
We only have one running back spot. There's only one ball and there's 5 guys, and trying to find a way to get all of them in, but also give them the ability to show their strengths
Mhm.
is definitely a difficult job. But one I embrace because I'm lucky to have 5 dudes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they definitely are dudes. Let's geek out a little bit. I want to just point out one thing about MJ Earl, his progression from last year. Like you said, he had over 500 yards last year behind Quez. But what I've seen so far this year, his ability to be so patient in his runs where he allows those blockers to get in front of him and then burst through. It is very reminiscent, at least for me, of Quez being able to manipulate those defenders and then make the play after that. Is that something that you've seen growth in MJ for this year?
Absolutely. I think it's more along the lines of we trust this offensive line. And when you got guys pulling out in front of you like Keelan Dixon and Keegan Mosher, what's not to trust? Those two guys are probably the best guards in the state. And, 9 times out of 10, if you're patient and you let those two guys get in front, good things are going to happen. So I think like MJ does a great job of letting those blocks develop, but he also knows that, hey, my bread's going to be buttered by letting Big Keelan and Keegan get out there and clear a path for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what a testament to him willing to take that role, that backup role, and then mature into that lead back. Had some injuries earlier, but really shined really bright Friday night against Westside, and it was great to see. And I can only expect so much more as we go through the year. Let's look at a little something else. We mentioned his name last year. Quez capped off one of the greatest careers in BHP history. Now you got a stable of backs. Instead of featuring that one guy, you as a coach, is there a transition, at least mentally or philosophy wise, in that transition from maybe that highlight reel every time you hand the ball to five guys working together kind of mentality?
I think the biggest thing is, I just want to make sure that I'm giving those guys the opportunity to be successful. Like MJ can run every single run we have in the playbook, but those other guys, they're better. Their strengths are more suited to certain runs and certain plays. And I just have to do a good job of trying to get them in to show off their strengths. And the other thing is, we don't have to like Friday night going into that game, I wanted MJ to get a bulk of the plays because he had 2 weeks off. I wanted him to get back in the game shape. And I wanted to make sure his leg was going to hold up, and it did. But I think going forward, it's more about, hey, there's no reason to let somebody get gassed out there. When you have 5 running backs and you're 5 deep, all right, you got 4 plays. Let's get another guy in, some fresh legs, because really we want to wear down a defense. Like that is our goal. With Quez, our defense has to be on the field a lot because we'd hand him the ball and he'd break an 80-yard run and the defense back out there. But Friday night, I thought we showed what we really want to be able to do this season. Carry on some methodical drives, really wear on the defense, get them tired. And, at the end of the game, it showed. We had the ball almost 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
If we hold the ball 30 minutes, we're going to be pretty successful going forward.
Yep. And along those lines, tell me a little bit about, you said you have those guys like BJ Anderson, Cam Robinson that are those pounders that you can lean on maybe early or in the middle parts of the game. How does that open up the offense, at least open up the running game later in the game?
Well, fresh legs. Listen, fresh legs against a tired defense, that's a winning recipe for us. So the more we can get fresh legs in there after we've wore down a defense and we got them tired and their hands are on their hips and they're ready to tap out, it just gives us a huge advantage going forward. And I think you saw some of that Friday night. Like Westside's a talented team. They have talented players. I thought their defensive line was, really talented, but we just kept wearing on them. Our offensive line did a great job. Nick Sargent, Brody Riddle did a great job. And, the running backs just did a great job of slamming the hole and following those guys. And I just think that makes us really dangerous moving forward.
Absolutely. And cut me off if we don't want to go there, but one of the things I've saw last week and then even that second half of the Lawrence game, when it's time to go, we're going to run it behind those 3 guys on the front of the offensive line. And how does your group how do they kind of benefit get the benefit from those, how much experience you have in that middle of that offensive line?
Man, Keegan, Keelan, Brady, they're not going to make mistakes. Brady's so smart at center. He's able to see things and let the guards know what's happening. And then those guards are able to make the right read, to pick up that black linebacker that's blitzing. They're so good at coming off on double teams and getting a scraping backer before he's able to get through the hole.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes
Mm-hmm.
the running back's job so much easier. And as a
Mm-hmm.
back, the confidence they have in knowing, all right, we're calling this play versus this
Mm-hmm.
front, it should hit in B gap. Well,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? It's going to hit in B gap because those guys are going to block it perfectly, and that's where it's going to hit. And I think that gives the running backs confidence where they're not having to slow play it. They
Yeah.
know, all right, it's supposed to hit in B gap. That's where it's going to be, and that's where I'm going to go. I think that's just, it just makes the running backs way more confident when they run the ball, running behind a group like that. And like Carter, Burgess, and McCray Pruitt, they're first-year starters at tackles, but they've done an outstanding job up to this point. The whole unit has. And, Coach Blackson and Coach O'Brien did a really great job with them getting those guys ready to go. And just them being so good as a unit makes our job so much easier.
Yeah. One more question on that, the unit as a whole. Tell me, what does it do for your backs when you have a quarterback like Noah Thomas? One, experienced, talented with both his arm, but especially with his legs. What's that threat of him pulling the ball? And we've seen it this year so many times. What's that threat? How does that benefit your group?
Well, first of all, Noah's threat with his legs holds guys in check. Those linebackers maybe can't fly downhill as quickly because they know if he pulls this ball, well, if we're not in the right position, he's going to take it 70 yards, which we've seen already.
Yes, yeah.
So I think that gives us a great advantage too, because again, anytime you can slow the defense down, get them to slow play it a little bit, that gives guys like Keegan and Keelan a chance to get outside and make some big blocks, and it opens up bigger holes for the backs, which ultimately make our runs easier. But also I think it helps with like the pass pro. Our running backs know, hey, we're blocking in pass protection. Like if we give Noah time, he's going to be successful. He's going to find a guy like Tajay running free down the field, or a guy like Jaden Glenn. Or if there's nothing there, he's going to find a back door and get out and make a play with his legs. And I think that only leads to the guys up front and the backs all blocking harder for him.
Yeah. And I think you see that confidence both in Noah, but as the offense as a whole is compounding week after week. And it's going to be great to see come playoff time. Let's talk about, so this is a little different. So usually Coach Jenkins is in the press box. He's calling the plays down, but you and Coach Dalton and Coach O'Brien and Coach Blackson, but you mainly are the main communicator from Coach Jenkins to the offense. Give me a little bit of an inside peek on that process. What's it like working with Coach Jenkins up in the press box? And then what's the process of being the one that communicates with the offense, play in, drive in, all that sort of thing?
Jink does a great job putting our offense in the best position to be successful. And he was dialing them up Friday night, boy, man. He was on one. But, the biggest thing is making sure that our communication between me and Noah is right. Like, anytime, as soon as Noah took over as a starting Q, I made sure that he and I got together to make sure that we were good on all the signal. We put in a new play, but we got to have a signal for it, and he needs to know it. And, Noah's done a great job of, not only being a part of that process, but recognizing it, getting plays in quick. Because, listen, we do a lot of stuff offensively. We shift a lot, we move a lot of guys around, and we try to make it as easy as we can on the players, which ultimately makes it harder for us on the coaches. But, and Noah. But Noah does a wonderful job of picking up those plays and getting the play calls in fast so we can get that ball snapped, without getting delayed game penalties. I think if, most regular, average, everyday people came in and saw our play calls and saw our, system of signals, their head might explode. But, we've done a great job of just being able to get that to our guys. Dalton does a great job of being able to get his receivers what they need to know. And, we've worked together now for a long time. And I think just all of us, myself, Coach O'Brien, Coach McClain, Coach Jenkins, all of us just being on the same page, knowing what we're trying to accomplish, being able to recognize when a play doesn't work right and who messed up and being able to address it on the sidelines. Like, there's no need for Jink to say, hey, MJ missed a block right there because I already saw it and I've already talked to him about it. But, the biggest thing is, like, if Jink needs to get a message to Noah, we make sure we relay that message. Or if, we're about to run a certain play and we need a certain, personnel package in, we make sure we get the right kids in. And,
Mhm.
And that's just stuff we've been doing for so long now. It's pretty seamless.
Yeah, from the outside, you're right. It looks like it would take me a couple days and a couple spreadsheets to get half of the stuff in each play, but you guys do it so effortless and with so much precision. And especially when you get that first down and you start going faster and faster and you start leaning on those guys, and it just seems like as the ball is being ran, Noah's already got that second play and ready to get going, and you guys are just so seamless with that, and it's great to watch.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk about. I'm going to ask you two of these. We'll ask you talk about a memory that you might have had with BHP, and then we'll talk about what it's like coaching at BHP. We'll start with that one. We've talked about you coaching at Southside, but you've been at BHP for 10 years, but you've seen atmospheres at other stadiums as we go to them. Give me a little insight at what it's like coaching a BHP football team.
And it's different. It's different here. You know, the community supports the team. The stands are always packed. You know, I remember last year, like in the first couple rounds of the playoffs, you know, some people were like, "Oh man, I thought there would be a bigger crowd," and the crowd's still big, you know. And I think that maybe is us being a little bit spoiled because we get so used to it because you know we always do have great crowds, and it's not only at home too; it's on the road. We travel and we go to Walhalla and West Oak and these schools that seem forever away. And, you know, the student section's still packed out. The fans are still coming in droves to watch us. It's just different, you know.
Mhm.
And, you know, for the guys that have maybe only been at BHP and never coached anywhere else, you know, I don't know if they really know it. But for a guy like myself who used to turn around and I could count the fans in the stands on two hands, you know, I don't take that for granted. It's really special.
Yeah, good. I'm there with you. I grew up BHP, played BHP, but I know Dad has a thing. He likes to count the away fans, and a lot of times it is counting on a couple hands. And but when you bring Bear fans on the road, it's not in the hundreds. We're talking close to the thousands, and that navy and red it travels. I think it's just a testament of how much it means for the community and how much support you guys have there. With that, what's a
Absolutely.
memory you got? You've been here 10 years. Tell me something that's really stood out to you on the field or a game or just something that stands out to you that's happened the last 10 years here with you.
Man, oh god, there's so many, you know. I think of like, you know, great performances, you know, in 2019 when RJ Ellis rushed for 350 yards against Walhalla. Like
Yep.
that was incredible. It was mind blowing.
Yep.
You know, we go to Daniel that year and Jeremiah Johnson breaks off that long run in the rain
Yep.
to secure the region championship.
Absolutely.
Last time Daniel lost at home until this past year when they got beat by South Point, you know? Like that game stands out. That was just an amazing night. But I think or all the highlight Sports Center top 10 plays Quez made in his career. You know, that those are an endless array. But I think my favorite memory is the state championship game. And it kind of goes back to I know the game didn't go the way we wanted it to, but it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. Like I remember, and like I know you can't see, but like I got goosebumps all over me right now thinking about it. Just walking those seniors out of
Mhm.
that tunnel as captains. And when we got onto the field and you just heard the fans erupt in the
Mhm.
stadium, like and seeing their faces, that's something I'll never forget.
That's right. Yeah, it's hopefully we're going to be making one more of those in a few months. So
That'd be nice.
thanks for that. It's such a great memory. I know it's the same thing. I played in the other state champion with Andrew and Chris and those guys, and some of the game isn't what truly I remember. It's because high school football is that pageantry, it's that community, it's everybody
Mhm.
against the other team, that sort of thing. And when you recognize that in the moment, you're exactly right. It sticks with you. So I'm glad you said
100%.
that. All right, let's hit a quick lightning round. I always like to finish this way. 5 quick ones for you, then I'll get you out of here. But we'll try to go as fast as you can. Favorite running back, NFL or college?
Favorite running back NFL? I got two: Maurice Jones-Drew and Fred Taylor. Love
You
both
like
of
the
them. They
little,
played for my Jaguars.
there you go, a
They
little
were
little
great.
bowling ball, huh?
Yes, sir. And then college was you remember Greg Jones at FSU?
Ooh,
He
same,
was a
yeah,
grown
same
man.
same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. All right. What's the perfect play that you call? What's the one that
So
you get so excited when it's executed perfectly?
I've mentioned these guys already, but I love Buck Sweep. I love watching Brody Riddle come down and down block on the defensive end, and watching Keelan and Keegan pull out in front and get that kick out block and that wrap block, and then watching that running back split those guards for a big gain, and watching those receivers come down and crack a linebacker. I mean, it's carnage, but it's beautiful carnage.
We need a slow motion for that one at some point.
100%. Yes, we
All
do.
right. Favorite sports movie?
Friday Night Lights.
There you go. All right, Booby Miles.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best piece of advice you give your players?
Be unselfish. Like that's the biggest thing, especially at running back, because at BHP, they're going to get the chance to carry the ball and carry the load. And if they have great games, they get to be the star. So the biggest thing is I just want them to be unselfish, because don't let that stuff go to your head. Still be the guy that's willing to go out there and work hard and carry your lunch pail and block for your teammates when you get the opportunity, because that says something, and it means something to the other guys.
Absolutely. All right. What's one word that describes your running back group this year?
Deep.
There you go.
Like,
I love that.
It's just overall, like, I don't know anyone. If you're watching this out there, people, and you have a high school with 5 running backs that you trust to carry the load,
Yeah.
reach out to me, because I don't think it exists.
Yeah, I just looked. All 5 running backs have, I believe, have over 150 yards through 4 games. So not only just one lead back and guys getting mop up duties, they're all putting in work. So I'm right there with you with deep.
And I do want to say this. I want to apologize to you and your dad, because I know y'all have a tough job keeping stats on Friday night. And I told Jink after the Lawrence game, I said, man, Kayne must hate me, because I'm running a new back in every 2 plays, and y'all are trying to figure out which back is this and who do I give the yards to. And I know I didn't make it easy on y'all.
Well, I'm starting to learn the difference between how Cam and BJ wears their socks and shoes. So I think one of them wears high socks and one of them wear low socks. I can get those twos separated that way. So that's what I'm picking up on, some details that way.
That's good.
Yep. So with that, I do want to just tell you, John, thank you so much for being here. We are so excited and proud of this running back group. I know this one, it gets a lot of that attention, but it's never the one asking for it. And I can tell you that there's never, anytime there's conversations with these running backs, it's always about their teammates, and you're really preaching that, and it's really hitting home, and it's so fun to see. And it's so fun to see these guys, how they compete every Friday night. And it's just a testament to you. So we're so thankful for that. Proud of you. And thanks for being here with us. I do have to get you, before you get out of here, I got to get your best. How about them Bears before we get off?
About them Bears.
I hear you. Thanks, John. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Kayne.
All right. Now let's look at the matchup between BHP and Westside last Friday night. But the Bears hosted the Westside Rams, reigning 4A upper state champion. But the Rams were coming in on a skid. They opened the season 0-2 with losses against Bestivia Hills in Alabama and TL Hanna. And then Friday night, those losing ways continued as the Bears put on an absolute dominant performance against the Rams. This started from the very first play of scrimmage. BHP went on defense. The Rams came on offense. They started with a little hitch play where Tajay Watson-Martin met the receiver, forced a fumble. D. Chester picks it up and runs it in for a Bear touchdown. First play of the game, and that dominance started there and went throughout the night. Westside did score after that first series, but that was the only offensive series that Westside even got close to scoring on the Bears. In the first half, BHP held Westside to 72 total yards, and pale that into comparison to some of their record-breaking teams from the last couple years. A couple of the key players on defense was those two linebackers, Ty DeBose and Jakari Anderson. Both had 7 total tackles. Ty had a tackle for loss, and then Jakari had 4 quarterback hurries. He made it a nightmare for both Bear Woods, the West Side, the quarterback, and their backup coming in later once Bear went out with a perceived injury. Offensively, the dominant rhythm started early and continued early. Their first 4 offensive drives went for a touchdown, led 33-6 at halftime. One thing we talked with Coach Ballinger was the ability to really pound the run early up the middle, which those runs really spring some of those buck sweeps with those wide receiver pop passes later in the first half. Tajay Watson-Martin had a touchdown receiving from that pop pass. Also, Errol got his season back on track after a couple of weeks of injury. He had 19 rushes for 97 yards and a touchdown, so he led the way rushing. Noah Thomas had another outstanding night, his most efficient night of the season. He was 13 completions for 17 attempts for 114 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, and he made an absolute great pass on a 3rd and 9 where BHP was backed up. He hit Jaden Glenn for a 58-yard gain and really maybe put that game out of reach, where BHP was able to continue on and score after that. Another theme of that night was the atmosphere. It felt like one of those deep playoff games for BHP. The stands were absolutely packed. I know BHP fans had that one circled, especially how the game went last year. I think with Westside, this may be more of a rivalry than the upcoming Palmetto game. I know a lot of kids on the BHP side have cousins and aunts and uncles on the west side of Anderson. A lot of BHP parents work with a lot of parents on the west side. So this was a big matchup on the BHP sidelines, and that emotion showed through. BHP played with a lot of emotion, got a couple personal foul penalties early. That really leveled out. The Bears really started to play under control as the game went on, and those penalties that we spoke of against Lawrence was nearly cut in a third. I think we had something around 70 yards of total penalties in comparison to the 170 that we had against Lawrence. So a huge step for the Bears. This was one of those measuring sticks for BHP to measure their performance against a top team in the state. And after Friday night, that performance was one of the most dominant in recent memory for the Bears. BHP did get the win 42-6 and go 4-0 on the season. There's only been one other time BHP has started 4-0 and scored 40 points in all 4 of the games to start a season. The only other time that happened was in 2023. But with that, the Bears showed their most dominant game, most complete game. This defense, once again, just championship level defense. And Coach Ballinger spoke about it. One of the added benefits of having a running game, as BHP does, they can eat away of that time and really give that defense a rest. I know last year BHP would score pretty quick on 1 or 2 plays in a series, and then the defense would be back out there. This year, the offense is really being able to be methodical and calculated and really keeping the opposing defense out there and allowing the BHP defense to stay fresh, and when they get a chance, they go after the opponent. And that showed against Friday. And then offensively, there's just weapons everywhere. We talked to Coach Ballinger about his stable of running backs. It was great to see MJ Earl back out there for the Bears. Noah Thomas, once again, with his legs and his arms. We're starting to see more and more of those receivers make plays. Jacobs Paul, and Jaden Glenn with one of the longest reception of the night as well. So it was a great win for the Bears, a great measuring stick for the Bears, and a great Anderson County rivalry win for the Bears. But with that, now let's jump over and talk about this upcoming matchup with Palmetto. Now let's talk about the matchup against Palmetto this week. BHP comes into the matchup 4-0, undefeated on the season, while Palmetto comes in 0-4. The all-time record against Palmetto, BHP leads at 52-7 all-time, and Coach Blackson is 15-0 against the Mustangs. BHP is currently on a 16-game winning streak against the Mustangs, and since 2000, BHP is 25-1. That one loss coming on a game BHP lost 7-6, and just a complete domination. This rivalry is more along the lines of proximity than actually level play, as the overall record entails. Palmetto has struggled. They opened the season with a loss to Wren, and then they lost to Crescent. In that Crescent game, they had a player to have to be medically sent to the hospital with some injuries, some neck injuries. My understanding that player is better and back with the team, but I know that was heavy on within that game. But then they followed that up with a loss against Travelers Rest, and then last week a loss against Liberty. Now, if we talk about the Bears, what's kind of the key storyline here? One, you have to stay motivated. The Bears will be facing this. Personally, this is my opinion. We'll be facing this throughout the regular season now. BHP will outmatch this Palmetto team. How does the coaching staff and the players themselves stay motivated to chase that perfection? Not perfection in the overall sense of wins and losses, but perfection each play, doing their job perfectly every play. Complacency. Last year, the first time we played Palmetto last year, Palmetto came out with a lot of energy, a lot of passion, and they really tried to sneak up on the Bears. They will come back with that same passion. BHP has to match that. They cannot see this as an inferior opponent. They cannot show complacency. And I have all the trust in the coaching staff to not let that happen. With that, let's talk about 5 quick stats that maybe can get us ready for this game against Palmetto. BHP's averaging 44 points per game this season. That's 176 total points. That is 6th most in all classifications, or that 7th most in all classifications. There's only 6 teams that have scored more total points than BHP this year. Defensively, BHP's only allowed 6 third down conversions this season. In all 4 games, only have allowed 6 total third down conversions. Along with that, Noah Thomas, with his passing last Friday night, surpassed the 4,000 career passing yards mark. He now sits at 4th all-time and creeping up that all-time leader list there. MJ Earl is also closing in 1,000 career rushing yards. I think he's just under 300 yards away from surpassing that mark. And then lastly, this senior class now sits at 40 total wins over the last 4 years, the most wins on a 4-year span. So a senior class total wins is set at 41. There's 3 senior classes that have 41. So with a win against Palmetto, this senior class will tie that record at BHP. So with that, like I said, keys for the Bears: determination, passion, fighting against complacency, and trying to perfect that play in, play out. You only get so many of these games, both in the regular season. So each game has to matter for each and every one of these Bears. And for the BHP fans, it's back at home. The Bears, just like last Friday, those stands were packed. The Bears fed off that energy, and we expect you to be there and be loud for the Bears once more this week. All right, Bear fans, that's a wrap on episode 8 of the Bear Rumble podcast. Thank you for being here with us. We ask that you subscribe and like wherever you listen or watch the podcast. We ask that you share it with your friends. We want to get this out and get these Bear players in front of as many people as we can. Also, point you to our website, thembears.com, where all team and individual stats are housed. We also each week post a Bear Tracks blog post with some more information about the previous game and the upcoming game. Check that out there. And then every Friday night, follow us on our social media accounts where we give highlights, game stats, and scores for each and every one of the BHP Bear football games. So with that, as I do every week, I want to leave you with one last, how about them Bears?